Hello, Shavua Tov. I'm normally doing Facebook Live. I like to call it Saturday Night Live or Motzi Shabbos Live with Leah Bassett the week that was, but for some reason it's not working. So we have this alternative here. Thank God for having options. So it is Saturday, January 4th, and I'd like to first give a shout out to my brother Alex and wish him a happy birthday and many, many more to come. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about. And the first one, it's very prevalent if you're following what's going on in the news, kind of all over the world, but big time in the United States right now, is there's a lot of anti-Semitism. And I think the word anti-Semitism is just being used too much. It's really lost its what honey? It's really lost sort of its meaning and its oomph, for lack of a better word or sound or whatever. So let's just call it Jew hatred, because that's really what's going on. And so a lot of people are like, "What? How do we do this? What are we gonna do?" Well, here's the scoop, folks. It's really pretty simple, but it's not easy. So sometimes things that are simple are not easy. So here's one of them. We've actually had the solution for a few thousand years, and the director and creator of the entire universe has just been waiting for us to get our act together. So we need to have a little history lesson here. Some of you watching might know part of our history, that there were two temples that stood in Jerusalem at two different times. During the first temple era, the Jewish people, amongst them, there was murder, idolatry, thievery, all sorts of terrible things that went on. And God destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. And 70 years later, the second temple was built. And during that time, Jews were hating each other. And so then God destroyed the second temple. And that's a few thousand years later. So think about this for a minute. After the Jews were doing these horrible things, murder, idolatry, thievery, terrible, terrible things, it only took 70 years for God to forgive and rebuild the temple. But because we were arguing with each other, it's taken thousands of years and the temple hasn't even rebuilt? That doesn't make any sense. You'd think that it would be the opposite. So if you dig a little bit deeper and see what's going on, you can get a better picture. And what's going on here, it's called baseless hatred. Now, for any of you out there who have been blessed to be parents, you can probably attest to this, because I know that my parents would. One of the worst things for a parent to experience is when their kids are fighting. When the Jews were doing idolatry, they were united. They were all doing idolatry. They were in it together. So that's why it only took 70 years. But then when they were hating each other, God, who's our mother and father in heaven, the ultimate parent, said, "You know what? You kids in the sandbox, you're fighting. Mom and I, we're going for a drive. We'll come back when you get along." And that is what's going on. And as Jews, as we keep on fighting with each other, the other nations are going to remind us louder and louder, you are Jews. You are one big, small, big family, and you need to stick together. Because when you're united, you're unbreakable. But right now, we're not united. We're unbreakable. So how do we fix this? One way is we make a decision that we're going to be part of the solution. And so that means if you're having an argument with a fellow Jew, pick up the phone and call them. Whatever it is. And if you make a pledge and you're determined to be a part of the solution, I guarantee you that God, who is the best personal trainer in the entire universe, is going to place in front of you all of the people that you are allergic to. Because that's how you work your muscle and how you work your spiritual muscle. and to really see if you're committed or if it's just lip service. Because it's easy to be nice to the people that we love and maybe have an argument with. That's easy. But it's not easy to love the people that we don't see life through the same lens, or we have a very different view on things. That's not easy. So that's what's going to happen. And that is what we need to do. And as my father of blessed memory would always say to me, he'd say, Leah, if you have a carriage that's being pulled by two horses, one horse that's strong and one horse that's weak, and you need to get the carriage moving faster, which horse do you whip or coax in order to get the carriage moving? And he'd say, Leah, think outside the box. And most people, and I imagine some of you watching, might be thinking, well, you have to push the weak one because the strong one's already doing it. Nope. The weak one is always going to continue to be weak. It needs the assistance. It needs the assistance of the strong one to pull it along. So that's what God does, is he sees those of us that are really wanting to make a difference. He's going to push us, and he's going to put those people in front of us who make it so challenging. But if we can keep our eye on the big picture and recognize and realize there is a goal for all of humanity. And that's another reason why the nations are mad at us, because it's up to us to bring Mashiach, to bring the Messiah who's going to end all of the suffering in the world, and everyone's lives are going to be so much better. And so the nations of the world, I can't blame them. They're pissed off at us because we haven't done our job, and so they're still suffering. So we need to do our job. Now, and this is the second thing that really needs to be clarified. So listen up, folks. One of the worst things that could have ever happened to the Jewish people is to be given this title of the chosen people. Let's clear that up. We are not the chosen people. We are the choosing people. Another quick history lesson. God creates the world, whatever that means. And then there's the whole sin in the Garden of Eden. And that becomes a disaster. And then we have the story of Noah, and the world was immoral, and God destroyed the world. And then there was the building of the Tower of Babel, and that was a big disaster. And so it was disaster after disaster after disaster. And God realized that he needed to give the instruction manuals to somebody. So he went to all of the nations of the world and said, here. For example, he went to the Greeks and said, here. And the Greeks said, well, what's in it? And so they looked inside the book and they said, oh, well, idolatry. You're not allowed to do idolatry. Oh, well, that's a big part of our life, so we're not going to accept it. And he went to all of the other nations, and they found something in there that went away their way of living life. And so nobody accepted it. And then they go to Moses, alav shalom, in the desert. And there we are wandering around in the desert, and God offers the directions to us. And we say, Nase v'nishma, nishma v'nase. And whichever one it is, that we will listen and we will do. Nishma and v'nase. We're not even going to look in the book. We are on it. You're giving us the instruction manuals. We see we're lost. We're wandering around. We will take the instruction manuals. And that is how this title of chosen people came about, because we chose to accept the instructions. It's like if you have a circle, at some point is the starting point and then the rest of the circle. It doesn't mean that that point is any better than the rest of the circle. It just means that it has to start somewhere. The Jewish people are also referred to as almond trees. Why almond trees? Because they are the first ones to blossom. And that means that their job is to show the other trees how to blossom as well. So that is the job of the Jewish people in the world. We are here to show the rest of the world how to blossom. That's it. We're not better than anyone else. We're just here to set the example. That is it. So that's all. Oh, my husband just sent me a note. It's Nase V'nishma. So that means we will do and then we will listen. Meaning we'll just jump on board and do your commandments that are in the Torah, and then we'll learn about them afterwards. But we're in it without even a question. So people,